So, throughout this whole project, I kind of mentioned it early on during my opening introduction. The question, why does it take so much effort and energy to communicate? I still don't know if I have the answer or not, but I definitely see that it takes a lot of energy just to avoid these non-listening behaviors, ambushing, pseudo-listening, literal listening. There's some other ones I didn't mention: defensive listening, monopolizing. We have to. We've been learning, and during the listening chapter, we've been learning about, being mindful to each other, and I think that kind of is the overall message when it comes to listening. I mentioned that in almost every single analysis, that you have to open your ears and use those nonverbal behaviors such as eye contact, and I use my hand gestures a lot. You have to be able to keep in tune with what you're being fed. They also talked about how to interpret that. And I talked about ambushing a little bit. Well, that's definitely not the right way to interpret it. Selective listening, you're not interpreting the message the right way either. You're only connecting parts of it. So it isn't just necessarily what you're listening to, but how you interpret it, and not being literal. So I think overall, it isn't necessarily that we're doing something wrong taking it in at all times, but we're not, what we take in, we're not interpreting it the right way. So I think that's why it's so much effort. It takes so much effort and energy to communicate, because we're constantly trying to figure out how to receive that input, that communication. We're trying to figure out how to give feedback to that, or first of all, interpret the information, bring it in, interpret it, and then try to figure out how to feedback at the same time. And this is all at the same time. So that's why communication can be so confusing, and that's kind of why I labeled this communication wars, because it's a constant balance. You have to find that balance between input and output, and in between those two is our brain and how we interpret it. Just like a nerve, just like your brain interprets nerve signals. It goes up, comes in through the body, goes up to the brain, your brain's got to do its magic, and it goes back out, and vice versa. Communication goes the exact same way. So that is a lot of effort, but we can work on it. Everybody in college is taking this class or speech or something along those lines. We have to learn. The whole idea through college is trying to figure out critical thinking, and that's kind of the whole idea of this process, is not just taking something in and spitting it back out, but understanding the overall meaning of it, and that's what critical thinking is all about to begin with. So I think that this communication pathway is a very important thing to learn, and hopefully I've learned something through this. I'm pretty sure I have. I seem to have learned something, and I hope you have too. Thanks for listening.